Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the digital asset investor, and the good news keeps on coming. I hear a lot of people in this community and when they're talking about digital assets, and they constantly, I see the comments that constantly complain, oh, all this good news and the market and the movement of price just doesn't do anything. Well, I've been here for quite a while, since 2013, and I can promise you the price does not move right in line with good news. It's always a lagging thing as far as price. But I am here to tell you that you haven't even seen hype yet. You think last December was hype. We haven't even begun to see hype. You're seeing the beginnings, just the beginning, the front end of the hype to come right now. And I'm going to show it to you right now. This is from C3 Nick. Definite follow on Twitter at C3_Nick. Bison, more than 6,000. I showed you the Bison app. Now remember, the Bison is the app of the second that was put out by the second largest stock exchange in Germany, and I'm about to show you what it's called. Well, it's called right here, Börse Stuttgart. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. But more than 6,000 people have downloaded the Bison app within 24 hours. The first 24 hours. Bison is supported by the second largest stock exchange in Germany, Börse Stuttgart. And then C3 Nick also tweeted out this. The second largest stock exchange in Germany, Börse Stuttgart, is advertising the new crypto trading app, Bison, with a massive banner on their website. Well, it's not just going to be a massive banner on their website. It's going to be television commercials over there. It'll be television commercials in European football, you name it. And it's not just this, though. Think about this for a minute. That's going on in Germany. Well, over here in the U.S., we've got Bakkt. We know Bakkt is coming. We know they're coming soon. Well, the same thing that you're seeing here as far as popularity and eventually mass advertising is going to be done by the New York Stock Exchange owns Bakkt. And so you're going to begin to see all of this, and that is what we call adoption, folks. You're going to begin to see all those people that have told you you're an idiot and that have laughed at you for buying XRP and owning digital assets. Those same people are going to be they may not have to ask you how to buy it at this point. By the time they don't have to ask you how to buy it and it's easy for them, and all of a sudden it's presented as being safe by Bakkt and companies like that, all of a sudden the money will already have been made, and you will be one of the ones that have made it. And that's what this is all about. This is what you call adoption. And no, price does not, the second that you begin to see this, does not necessarily follow. But we know that it will eventually follow, and that's what matters. You're talking about the first new asset class since, I believe, 1696, when they created bonds. This is from Jill R. XRP, at Jill R. Team XRP, major community member. So go follow her. She puts out this: why Bitcoin, Litecoin, XRP are inevitably the future of money, shares DeVere Group CEO. Now, I've talked about, this guy has made positive comments in the past about XRP. And so this article is worthy of going over. He's the CEO, I believe, of a major financial firm over in Europe, I believe. He said, it says, now the similar thoughts are further presented forward by DeVere Group founder and CEO Nigel Green. In his Forbes post, he shares that cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and XRP, are the biggest and most fundamental shakeup in the financial sector since the global financial crash of 2008. Moving forward, Green says there are few key drivers that explain why they are inevitably the future of money. Green provides the instance how Ripple is becoming the best place to develop into a principal global implementer of transfers by foreign banks back to their home country in the form of remittances. Hundreds of banks and financial institutions across the world are working with crypto, and according to him, this is a trend that is set to continue and grow. You're darn right, Mr. Green. Okay, moving along. Now, I showed you this morning that they did the Ripple drop, and then David Schwartz tweeted this out. 2018 was a big year for the XRP ledger, particularly for decentralization. Watch for my thoughts on this. Now, here's what's interesting. If you go down into this thread, some people are asking him questions, trying to see if they'll answer his questions. And down here, he answered two that I thought were interesting. First, fantastic, David. Thank you. So 2008 was about decentralization. What will 2019 be about? I don't have a crystal ball, but my gut is telling me connectivity. In other words, everybody plugging into the Ripple network and thus XRP. Remember R3 Corda Settler? Okay, and now scroll down. This is also interesting. Joel Katz, the core of the Internet of Data is TCP/IP built on the backbone of hardware and routers. Does the same principle count for ILP, which is Interledger Protocol? Because it helps to move currency around like data. The core of IOV is it then TCP/IP or ILP, or is the ILP to be seen as a connector? I'm getting the tongue twisters here. ILP analogizes well to TCP/IP. They're both light interoperable protocols that specify no more than needed for networks to intercommunicate and permit innovation on protocol layers, both above and below them. TCP/IP encapsulates data, ILP encapsulates value. Well, there you have it, folks. And I've spoke about this before. For those of you that were around back when we first got email, I remember my senior year in college, which would have been 1995, 96, somewhere in there. I remember the school, when I was at Auburn University, I remember the school telling us that we had email addresses, and I remember laughing and saying, why do I need one of those? I don't know what that is. Well, what TCP/IP, when I hear TCP/IP, what I hear is, what it reminds me of is that back during the internet days, before the internet went mainstream, it was not possible to go from one domain to the next. In other words, to send an email, originally, you couldn't send an email from, say, a Gmail address. They didn't have Gmail back then, but I'm just using this as an example. A Gmail address to, say, someone's company address, like at Gmail to at Coke.com or whatever Coca-Cola's address would be. You couldn't send from those to those. Well, with my understanding of the way, and I'm not a technology guy, by the way, let me give that caveat before I get attacked or whatever. TCP/IP is what allows the information to interact. So it allowed that Coke email address to communicate with the Gmail address, and so that you can go from one network to another. That's the transfer of information. If you can, and when you start thinking of Interledger Protocol, if you can imagine money moving the same way, you can see how Swift becomes a complete dinosaur. Moving along, I tweeted this the other day, but I got some information today that I wanted to tie this in. There was an article the other day. Fed Chair Jerome Powell says the case for raising interest rates has weakened. Well, what I said that the translation of this is, we realize we can't raise interest rates without ending the Ponzi scheme. I've said for a long time, the U.S., and not just the U.S., but countries around the world have built up their economies on debt, unsustainable debt. And now they are all in a position because they would have you think that they fixed things after the financial crisis, when the truth is they fixed nothing. They just piled more debts on the countries. And so now what you saw over the last few months is you saw the stock market begin to collapse. And the reason it began to collapse is because when the Fed, they know that they have to start raising interest rates. But the second that they started to raise those interest rates, the economy began to collapse, because the debts are unsustainable. Interest rates go up, and they all of a sudden have to pay interest on that debt, and it goes up. And it freaks out all of these people who have been getting free money for the last 10 years. And so the stock market began to collapse. And so what happens? The Fed does what any good little boy that runs the Fed does. He does what he's being screamed at to do, and he stops raising interest rates, because they all know it's a Ponzi scheme, and they all know that they cannot do what would be the responsible thing to do, which is to raise interest rates. Well, I've said it many times on this channel, and this is the reason that Bitcoin, digital assets had been worked on before the financial crisis, but there is a reason that Bitcoin was released right as all of the bailouts and all that was going on. And it was a direct response to what these people have done to destroy the economies and the countries financially in this world, including the United States. Well, today, Sergeant Obi-Wan, who's a definite follow, at Sergeant Obi-Wan, Fed chair concerned about 22 trillion in U.S. debt. Is Bitcoin a viable alternative? Well, I don't know about Bitcoin. Well, actually, I do. These digital assets, the ones that survive, the ones that are going to be the legit digital assets that come out of all of this, those digital assets are all finite in number. In other words, Bitcoin, there will never be more than 21 million. I don't know, I can't remember what Litecoins is, but XRP's is 100 billion. Well, watch this. This is the article that he's tweeting here. Fed chair concerned about 22 trillion in U.S. debt. Well, he better be concerned. And then there's this tweet from this guy. I think he's an SEC, an attorney. I think he's an attorney. I think I've read this guy's tweets before. Fed Chair Jerome Powell talking about the 22 trillion U.S. debt. I'm very worried about it. But from the Fed's standpoint, the long-run fiscal non-sustainability of the U.S. federal government isn't really something that plays into our policy decisions. Buy Bitcoin. That's what this guy says. Now, this tweet right here is more exactly in line with, I think this is the CEO of Shapeshift. Don't quote me. I'm pretty sure that Eric Voorhees is the CEO of Shapeshift. When the next global financial crisis occurs and the world realizes organizations with $20 trillion in debt can't possibly ever pay it back, and thus must print it instead, and thus fiat is doomed, watch what happens in crypto. He's exactly right. Watch what happens. And I've given you so often on here the example of Cyprus. Back in, I believe it was 2013, Cyprus did the first test run on bail-ins, which means the country gets in massive debts that they're put into by the politicians and all of the silly programs that can't be afforded. And then what do? Ultimately, they're not going to do bailouts, where a bailout, they have to get all of the politicians to vote for it, and that's politically tough on the politicians. Well, they don't want to have to do that anymore. So now they're going to do bail-ins. And a bail-in, it's already been done in Cyprus. Look it up. Look up Cyprus bail-in. They closed down the Cyprus banks. They declared a bank holiday, or whatever you want to call it, and they said that it was the patriotic duty of the, I think, Cypriot citizens. I think I'm saying that right. It was their patriotic duty to just get X% of their savings shaved out of their bank accounts, and there was nothing they could do about it. It was stolen. That's called a bail-in, and it's already written into the game plan of a lot of these banks across the world. I've seen the document for the Bank of England. C3 Nick provided it, and I showed it on my channel one day. I've seen the document. It is part of their policy to be able to do bail-ins at the next crisis. Income digital assets. And that is what this is all about. That is why this was all born. That's what it's always been all about. That's the big, big, big picture, is that This is what prevents the politicians and the central bankers and all of these people who have destroyed the financial world, but by doing things that they know are not sustainable, printing money and all of this debts, $22 trillion. The United States is $22 trillion in debt. Say that to yourself. That is ridiculous. It's embarrassing and it's completely unsustainable. And there are a lot of people who should not only be ashamed of themselves, but should be put in prison over it. But do you think they're going to prison? No, that's not going to happen. So the only real solution is to buy digital assets, period. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button and tell your friends and family that $22 trillion will not be paid back, and digital assets are the answer. Thank you for listening.